and welcome to Finextra. I'm Thea George and I'm here with Paul Walvik-Joynt of Nets. We're at Sibos 2016 in Geneva and we're talking about instant payments. Paul, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me here.
What do you think are the implications for end users of the rise in instant payments?
I think that there's a number of implications for instant payments. Number one, it's instant. It provides a user experience which resembles a lot of the things that you see on the web today. So any service that you put on an instant payment rails will emulate or resemble to a large degree that experience that you have. There's a lot of research that goes into, the responsiveness of websites and how long you're really taken up by it, and it's under half a second. So, instant payments, the more we move to being faster and faster and faster, the services will be put in place so that the experience is just greater and greater for the end users. And adding features not only to the instant payment part, but the richer information that you can provide on an instant payment scheme is, I think, the key that will be driving this moving forward. There's a lot of services that traditionally would just be a payment. But now you can connect this with other types of information, structured or not, and provide a very, very solid experience. I think it not only goes for the younger generation who are used to social media apps like Snapchat or Facebook or whatever they use, but that type of experience is something that has to permeate through any type of service, not only being it mobile, but being it on any touch point that you utilize for the instant payments.
With so many instant payment services being developed now, there has to be a challenge around interoperability. How can the industry manage interoperability without restricting innovation at the same time?
The interoperability issue is something that is tackled in various forums where vendors like us and others are collaborating on creating interoperability. That goes for the scheme parts and all of those things. I'm not too worried about that the industry will not come to a conclusion of how to create interoperability. We've been pretty good in the past in terms of creating standards, in terms of creating frameworks for the same type of thing. The only thing that is a little bit more of a challenge now is that instant is fast. And instant means that there are some technical challenges sometimes that need to be overcome, that are maybe bigger hurdles. Now, technology advancements has come so far that we'll deal with those things. So as long as there is enough focus on getting this interoperability solved, and what I see is that everyone is really keen to making that happen, I think that's going to be good and it's going to solve itself. Your second part of the question, when it comes to balancing that out with innovation, I think you both need the standardization and you need the interoperability frameworks to actually foster the innovation. Because once you get the basics out of the road and you have interoperability, then you will automatically also have the pace of both domestic solutions and maybe larger scope solutions that can innovate on top of that. There's no sort of conundrum between those two, because if you tackle the one, you can do the other in parallel. So the services that go on top of that, I think that's really where you want to put a lot of the energy, but you want to put enough energy on the interoperability so that you can have a thriving ecosystem where services are provided where they make sense and where they prevail in the ecosystem.
So let's talk about services then. How do you see the provision of services changing given the rise of instant payments?
There's a lot of focus on the P2P part. There's a lot of focus on mobile solutions. I think that what we will see is a tremendous proliferation of services that one probably in a traditional sense would say, well, what is the need for doing this in instant payments? And I think the need is going to just become increasingly more important because the world is becoming more and more instant. So take, for instance, a number of initiatives like I've heard here at Sibos. There's a lot of talk about blockchain. There's a lot of talk about, long supply chains, smart contracts. And then as an afterthought, most people say that, yeah, and embedded in that are some touch points where there are payments. Now when I hear that, I hear, wow, this ecosystem, when blockchain and those things really take off, they're going to need the very characteristics of instant payments to be really successful in some of the use cases that they're going after. And I think that is really exciting, because in that sense, you're providing a landscape where the instant payments is sort of the enabler for services and bridging the gap towards multiple technologies and a multitude of use cases. I personally think that the focus on P2P is fine. Merchant focus is also fine. But there's a huge opportunity in the B2B space. And it's largely, I wouldn't say been overlooked, because we have a lot of conversations about this, but it's something that comes as a natural evolution a little further down the road. Now, back to your question about interoperability, once we get the interoperability frameworks and make sure that everything can happen domestically and we can go across borders and so forth, I think you will see a explosion of services, much like the P2P explosion that you see today in the B2B space. And I think that is tremendously exciting, because that's where you can really create a lot of value, where traditionally the long chains, the long processes can be simplified to a large extent, also automated, also using lots of cool technology that we see for instance with bots and AI and all of those things. So that can sort of simplify those chains and create the environment where those services will thrive and survive in a space that we've never seen before. And I think that the rails that we are establishing with instant payments are the rails that will take us to another level on services, not only reusing the services that we know today, but creating totally new services that will take it to the next level. It's exciting.
Paul, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.